Hey, I think this is actually all. I don't know. Bluetooth connected. Oh, Bluetooth is not. Okay, hey, there we go. Gonna hang out for a bit till people join in. Conversation for today. Excuse me. I think this thing is cutting off. I don't know. I can't really tell. Just hanging out here, waiting for some more people to join in. Hey. Waiting for some more people to join. Sorry I was late. Had to help my mom do a few things for a second. There we go. Alright. I know I do need to come to Tallahassee. I haven't been in 8 years. I don't think I've been to Tallahassee in 8 years. Can't hear me? Okay. I don't know what. Alright. We're just going to take that off because we can't. I don't know why it keeps cutting off. Anywho. Yes, I haven't been to Tallahassee in 8 years, so it's been a long time. Been a long time. Just hanging out. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. 12:06. Feel like it's enough time. So, hey everybody, it's Lindsay here from Consciously Coping. I'm trying to turn this in a good direction. I think that's good. Hey everybody, it's Lindsay here from Consciously Coping. Today is Tuesday, so we are going to have our Transparency Tuesday discussion. And today's discussion is about being Black and being alone in a mental health facility. So before we get started, I like to do my introduction, of course, as well as a few breathing techniques to get us grounded, centered, and ready for this conversation. Because some of these conversations can be a little bit heavy. And so I want to make sure we're all in a really good space to join the conversation. So, like I said, I am Lindsay Anderson. I am a mental illness advocate. I am also a mom, as well as a non-traditional college student. And I'm the founder and creator of Consciously Coping. Now, Consciously Coping is an online social media platform that is created and has been curated for African Americans who live with a mental illness. And so this space is a space for us to come together and share our experiences while navigating the mental health community in America, so in the United States. And so what I try to do here is really amplify, uplift, shout, scream out the names of countless of millions Americans, Black Americans in the U.S. who live with a mental illness that feel as though they don't have a voice and their concerns aren't heard. And I also try to share as many resources as I can to diminish the barriers to access of treatment. And so that's kind of what this platform is. And so I utilize Transparency Tuesday as one of those tools. I share my personal experiences within the mental health community, and my personal opinions about kind of how the mental health community affects us in America. And so what these conversations do are they're kind of, I want to kind of get the ball rolling. I want to kind of get everything started here. And so these conversations in Transparency Tuesday are specifically to do that, to start the conversation and hopefully continue this conversation and provoke something in you to go make changes in your family, in your own life, in your community, in regard to the impact on the mental health community on Black people with mental illnesses. Today, like I said, we're talking about being Black and being in a mental health facility. And this is my own personal experience. These are not experience of others. This is my personal experience. So before we begin, I like to do breathing techniques. So I want to take just to show you guys a little quick technique, and we're going to do it really quickly. I want you guys to get comfortable, everybody to get centered, get grounded. And so we're going to do some belly breathing. And so what this does is it's going to actually calm down our central nervous system, right? And so this is going to help us be able to relax, help us feel more centered, help us feel our, to strengthen up our self-esteem. And so what this really focuses on is the sacral chakra, right? And that's right between the sternum and the navel. And so we want to fill up our belly as much as we can, expand it as much as we can, focus on our breathing, and this helps us relax. So we're going to get started. We're going to do it like twice. Typically I do it a lot longer, but for the sake of time, just do it twice, taking 2 great deep breaths. So you want to be careful and not breathe from your shoulders, not, scrunch up your shoulders, relax the chin, relax the face, try to relax as much as you can, try to sit up, because you really want to extend, the abdomen area so you can get a full breath. I like to put my hand under my sternum and right below my navel. It's up to you. And so we'll take in a really deep breath. And so on this last one, we're going to take in a deep breath, expand the belly from the navel. And what we're going to do is make a loud kind of let go noise. So we're going to take a deep breath in. And so what this does, that allows us to kind of calm down, being from overstimulated, right? From social media, being overwhelmed. So we are going to get started on this conversation. And I actually have up the notes from the last meeting. So wait a minute. Let me switch my screen over. All right. Okay. So I've already introduced myself, talked about consciously coping. Today, I'm talking about being Black and being in a mental health facility. So you may have not had this experience. You may know someone who has. You may know someone who may need to go. You may be thinking about, how can I get help for someone to go in a mental health facility, and what does that look like? And so hopefully what I hope you gain, my intention for this conversation is for you to hear my experience, kind of take from my experience and say, okay, how can we make this situation better? Do I need to call the police on this person? How should this look? How do I get this person the help that they need, right? And so I'm going to talk about 5 specific areas, and then we'll talk a little bit about the organizations that are doing radical reform to abolish and change and defund these systems that are in place. And then, of course, we'll talk a little bit more. Yes, I am taking guests. Yay. You're more than welcome to join in. So I will get started, and then just request to join in maybe in like 5 minutes, and that's cool. And so what we're going to do is just talk about 5 key points today. And then, of course, people can ask questions. We'll talk about some radical reform. We'll talk about other organizations. I will share, of course, resources online. You guys know how I do. Okay, log in. Okay, yeah, absolutely, no problem. And so we're going to have this conversation. Keep in mind, I am not a mental health professional. I am a mental illness advocate. I do have certificates in certain different types of platforms. So like I am a QPR. I'm QPR certified. So I can assist with people who may be experiencing distress and giving them the tools and the resources they need and get them to a place where they can get some help or some service. So those are things that I can do. However, I cannot give you medicinal treatment plans or psychiatric help or therapeutic help. This is just me telling my personal story. So we're going to get started. I want to talk about the entry process. So let me give you a little background. So I have been living with mental illnesses my entire life, since the age of 12. And I am quintessential, kind of what you hear people have been misdiagnosed. I am one of those people. I was misdiagnosed for, I guess you would say 15 years. Yeah, no longer. I was misdiagnosed for about 16, 17 years with dysthymia. And dysthymia is a type of depression. It's in that depression family. So, you have major depressive disorder and then dysthymia. Dysthymia is what they consider as being able to function with depression. And so the depression is more persistent. It lasts longer. People can stay in a depressive episode for about 2 years. But they're still able to function. They may still be able to go to work, still may be able to run a household. But they are still feeling the effects of being depressed. And so I was misdiagnosed for about 17 years. And I got an accurate diagnosis in 2017. So I lived my entire life on different medications, different type of therapy treatments, and these things did not work. Often when I went into these establishments and discussed that, hey, these things aren't working, it was more so, let's just try different medicine. It was never, let's talk about what your illness, what you're experiencing, your behaviors or your symptoms. It was, hey, let's just get on a new medication and let's see if that works. I have been on everything from lithium to Wellbutrin to a fixer, Paxil, Xanax. I have been on antipsychotics. I have been on every piece of medication that you can think of until I finally got my correct diagnosis. Nothing worked. Therapy didn't work. Medicine didn't work. Nothing worked. And so as I got older, those things continued to affect how I lived. So the entry process into mental health facilities. So I, as an adult, and I consider adult 18, I have been hospitalized twice. And so the first time I was hospitalized, so I call it voluntary, involuntary. So I reached out to a friend. This person actually drove me to the hospital, to just a traditional hospital. They thus transported me to their behavioral center. And I was there for 3 days. So I was under what's called a Baker Act. And the Baker Act is a 72-hour hold. So that's why I say it's a voluntary, involuntary thing. I was a danger to myself. I was suicidal. I had suicidal ideation. Trigger warning. I was a self-harmer as well. And so they were concerned, of course. And so when I initially got there, they kept me in a little small room, like the size of a closet, with a security guard outside. And I was there until I could get to the facility. By this time, I had not slept for about 4 days. And so I was still up. Once I arrived to the facility, which was kind of around the corner, once I arrived to this facility, of course, upon entry, they kind of take you to the front desk. They take everything. Hair bows, glasses, they take jewelry, they take shoestrings out of your shoes, strings out of your hoodie, strings out of your pants. They take anything that is elastic, any headphones, earrings, rings, necklaces, anything that may seem like you can harm yourself or someone else. Now, in the facility I was in, there were different floors, right? So they had A, B, and C. A is the floor I was on. So although I was considered a danger to myself, I was not experiencing psychosis. So I was not on floor B. I was on floor A. So we were people who considered could function. And floor B were the people who could not function. Now, floor B was literally a floor like around the corner. Thus, you hear screaming, you hear crying, you hear people who are experiencing psychosis, people who are talking to themselves, people who are threatening to harm other people. And they're just right on the other side. And then section C, of course, was the children's ward. And so they were actually upstairs. They had an entire floor to themselves. And you could actually see their like playroom through glass. And so the entry process is pretty easy. They just get you in, they ask you your name, they take your temperature, do the basic things. They take all of your belongings. They'll leave your clothes. They will leave your clothes for you. Of course, they'll give you additional clothes if you need it. So pretty much you wear like scrubs if you don't have any additional clothes, or if anyone doesn't bring you clothes. So upon entry, the very first time I went, it's very scary. You are alone. You are sectioned off. You are in a building that people kind of can't find. Um, and so I had a roommate. My first roommate was really sweet. And it was, it was good. And then she left. Her time was kind of coming up. She was leaving. And so I was by myself. It is definitely scary. They definitely try to give you medication. That is the key. And so, like I tell people, the ideal in these facilities are not really to get you better, they're to get you out of there. You are taking up a bed for someone else who possibly needs it. So, the quicker they can get you out, the quicker they can get someone else in. And so, there is really no like structural plan that they create to ensure that you do not return, or that you decrease your chances of returning. So just it's you can't sleep, we're giving you medicine. You don't take the medicine, you won't leave. If you won't take the medicine, we'll forcefully give it to you. And these are the things that they tell you. And so that's kind of how that experience was. And so I also want to talk about like room, food, and etc. So when it comes to room and board in these facilities, it's just standard. You have a bed, you may have a desk depending on the floor you're on, and that's it. You have a bathroom, and that's it. You don't have a shower. We didn't have a shower curtain. It was just a stand-in shower. Of course, they are concerned with you harming yourself. So food, we went to the cafeteria like everybody else. You have plastic utensils, and the first day you actually could not eat with any utensils. So the first day upon arrival, you cannot use utensils at all. Literally, you have no plate. We had no cup. You had like a soft cardboard container of like milk and juice, and then a sandwich. You get no, you cannot eat with anyone. Someone has to walk you down, so you have to wait until someone is available to walk you down for you to eat alone. So upon entry, you are very aware that you are alone, that you are here by yourself, that no one is gonna be here with you, and it's a scary feeling. And so for me, I was 19. I was away for school, and my family was 4 hours away. They didn't know. They didn't know where I was. They didn't know I was in here. My friends didn't know. The one person who took me did tell one of my friends, who thus told about maybe 4 or 5 of my friends, and only one of them came to visit. So there is this sense of being alone, that you don't know anybody. And like I said, it's a scary experience. Of course, you're not conversing with the nurses. You're not talking to them. The people who are in there with you, when I first got there, I didn't want to talk to anybody at all. So I got there at about 3 in the morning, but I didn't get into the hospital until the next day at about 10 a.m. So I was there for about 7 days, and I was there for about 7 days. I mean, hours before I actually got like entered into the facility. So you feel the sense of loneliness. There are, no pictures on the wall. No, like it's just a box. So as far as oh, I got someone joining. Yay. Oh, I don't know. So embrace your unknown. I'm trying to. It's saying unable to join. I don't know what's going on. Okay, I think that's good. So upon, like I said, so that upon, you get the sense of I'm alone, and so you can imagine being 19. Hey,
Hey,
how
hi.
are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I've DM'd you, we've talked, but this is like our first time meeting. So
Yeah.
nice to meet you. I'm Dana.
Nice to meet you. I'm Lindsay. So yeah, I was just talking about the sense of being alone, kind of when you get into a mental health facility, and just explaining to everyone that upon entry, you are aware that I'm by myself. I was just saying, kind of, when I got there, I was 19 originally, like the first time. My family lived 4 hours away, and my friends the one person who actually brought me there, he actually went and told like a few of my friends, and out of all of the people he told, only one person came to visit. And so you get this sense of I am in this alone. You don't know anyone. You really don't communicate with the nurses. They kind of just like, here, take your medicine, bye. The other people who are there with you, you have to put it in perspective of everybody's here for a mental health concern. So of course people are afraid, they may be timid. And so you really don't have like this communal based type of experience, especially if you're somewhere for a short experience of time. So like for me, my initial first time, I was there for 3 days. And so it was kind of the three loneliest days of my life. It's like I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm in a depressive episode. I'm hurting. I don't want to be here, and now I'm here alone. And before I got there, I already felt alone. So it was like kind of a double whammy. It was kind of like I already felt alone before I reached there, but now I really feel alone because I'm in this place. I don't know anyone. So I don't know if you kind of want
Yeah.
to kind of jump in and talk about that experience as well.
Yeah, I'd love to share my story. So my name is
Yeah, there you go. It's just kind of delayed, just a tad bit.
we're having a lightning storm where I am, so I'll just talk quickly, but as long as you can hear me. Um, so yeah, I was saying I've struggled with my mental health my whole life. And I've struggled with suicidal ideations often, more often than I've admitted to anyone. Uh, but in 2016, it got to the point where I physically I could not do it. And so I had moved back home with my mother, and I basically told her. And so I'm Jamaican, and I think mental illness is stigmatized within communities, but like in Jamaican, it's just like we don't talk about it at all. So I basically told my mother because at that point I was actively thinking through things, and she basically was like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear it. Like, this is so depressing. And I literally said to her, if I can't talk to you about this, who else? Who else can I talk to? Who's going to be there for me? You're my mother. And so that was when I first, like that was the first instant where it's like, okay, I already feel alone in this because I'm already, people just don't want to hear it. So you feel like you have to keep it to yourself when you're actually told you they don't hear it. And so eventually we called the crisis hotline and they told her to take me to the hospital. So yeah, similar experience to yours where we went and it was like a voluntary hospitalization. And also, I just want to preface by saying I've never spoken about this experience. Like it happened in 2016, and I've never um, vocally spoken about this experience because it was so traumatizing for me. Um, it was so traumatizing, and even afterwards, like after I got out of the hospital, my family kind of acted like it didn't happen. And so it was like, oh yeah, she was in the hospital, but no one, just everyone just acted like it didn't happen. And that, I was lonely before, I was lonely in the hospital, and I'm lonely afterwards. So okay, so yeah. I got to the hospital, and the process, it took like 7 hours. It took like 7 hours to even be admitted. And I want to talk about how we need more care in the systems, because you're here, you're suicidal, you're like literally hanging on for dear life. And there's no soft touch in the admission process. Like when you go to the hospital, they're like, "Why are you here?" "Oh, I'm depressed." "Why are you depressed?" "I don't know." "Do you want medication?" "No." "Why are you suicidal?" "I don't know. Like, I don't know. I just feel this way." And it's like, it's not soft. It's not caring. It's just like probing and like invasive. And I don't have the language. Like, I literally don't have the language. You're here. You're the healthcare worker, you know? So it was that. And so basically we're sitting in the hallway for 7 hours, just waiting, just kind of like waiting. And then at this point we're just like, what's happening? What's happening? Like, I'm in here. I'm in urgent care. I need this help. So finally they I'm plugging in my phone. Finally someone comes and they're like, "Okay, we're ready." And me being so foolish now, I'm here thinking, yay, great, I'm gonna get seen, like I won't be depressed anymore. And they come up to the hospital and they put you in this car, and it's like a metal gate between you and the driver. So you already feel like you're in a police car, because you're already being like physically separated from people. You go, I think I got in finally around 3 a.m. and it's exactly what you say. They strip you. They literally, they did the intake, they ask you the questions. And for me, I don't know if this is other people's experience, but for me, I think I'm very, very high functioning. So I can literally be clinging on for life, but I'll be speaking like this. So even as I was doing my intake, the nurse literally said to me, like, "Did your boyfriend break up with you? Like, you're too pretty to be here. Like, why are you?" Like, it's like they're already invalidating me as I'm at the psychiatric ward. And so from that time, I was like, okay, that checked me in. It's like 3 o'clock. And you're right, I hadn't slept in days, because I was dealing with what I didn't know at the time was bipolar disorder. So, like, manic episodes, you don't sleep. And they checked me into the hospital and they strip you. And that's like the first, they're already invasive when they're asking the questions when you're checking in. Now they're literally invading your like physical space. They check you in. You go into the room. I had a roommate, and she seemed nice. She was talking, but this is wild. I haven't, and I really appreciate being able to talk. I really appreciate being able to talk to this with other people who know, because, like I said, my family, it's never been spoken about, and it's almost like this was such a traumatic experience, and I had to keep it locked away because no one wanted to talk about it with me. And so yeah, we're in the hospital, and it's like you said, they drug you. Like, they drug you. They literally, I did function. I couldn't move. I felt like a zombie. And it's weird because I think I really appreciate like Imade's storytelling about, the psychiatric ward as a jail, because I never had the language to express that that's what it was, because you're in the room, they take all the curtains out, like, so they leave the door wide open, you can't even shower with the door closed, someone walks into the room every 30 minutes or every 15 minutes to make sure that you're not doing anything to harm yourself. I'm in the room, I'm sleeping because I'm drugged, because they have me on all these pills. They're having you sign content, you're signing like consent forms. I don't even know what I'm signing because I'm on these pills. They're coming and pricking your arm and drawing blood at all times of the night. So even if you want to sleep, you can't sleep, because everything about it is like poking and prodding. I feel like I'm an animal. Like, I feel like I'm a testing subject. And it feels like you're in prison, because they're like, because at this point now I'm realizing I thought I was going to get treated. I thought I was going to get help, but I'm realizing now this is not the place for help for me. They're not going to help me. They're not trying to help me, because anytime I talk to somebody, they're asking me why, like, what are you doing here? And it was just like, you went to school for this, you should know, help me. And so yeah, that happened. And there was something I was going to say about, okay, yeah, so then I realized I want to get out. I'm trying to get out, but
Yeah.
there's no visitation hours. Like, I think the whole time I was there, my mother could come visit me for 30 minutes, and it was like supervised, but it was like 2 days or 3 days away. So I had to wait. And they're saying, if you want to get out, um because at the time I was under my mother's insurance, and so they wanted to keep me, because realistically, I think that when you have a good insurance that pays high premium, they'll keep you. Versus,
Yeah.
there were other people who I saw who were, yeah, crisis mode, but I think they didn't have insurance or something. So they would literally give people just bus tickets and just say, go, like just
Yeah.
give them a bus ticket and just go. Whereas me, they were trying to like keep me, and like keep me longer, and I was trying to get out. And they said, if you wanna get out and you want to be released, you have to show, like, you have to have like good behavior, like you have to show that you're doing it. So it's like, I'm here, I'm drugged up on all these pills, I'm not sleeping because they're proking and putting, someone's coming and watching you all the time, people are like screaming, there's, it's like all these things. And then I'm trying to force myself to socialize so I can be good, so I can get released. And it just was honestly one of, like, I'm happy to talk about it now because it's one of the worst experiences ever. And like I said, we had to fight to get released. And to be honest, the only reason I was able to get released when I did is because one of, like, a family, like a distant family friend who I hadn't seen in years, happened to be a social worker. So she
Wow.
saw me there, and once
Wow.
I saw her, my whole experience changed, because then I could talk to her. But if she hadn't
Right.
been there, I would have felt alone. And so she basically like advocated for me. But even after I was released, there was no plan of continued care. There's no follow up. I think a month late, they scheduled like an appointment with a psychiatrist for a month afterwards. 2 weeks or so after I'm released, I'm not any better than when I, like, nothing changed. I went
No.
I went to call the people to get an early appointment, and it turns out he had canceled my appointment because he went on vacation and wasn't coming back for another month. And I said, how up, like, was no one going to tell me this? Like, I was here waiting for an appointment, and no one was going to tell me that the psychiatrist canceled my appointment with no kind of follow-up, no kind of, there's no therapy appointment, there's no group healing, there's nothing. It's literally like in and out, in and out. It's like a revolving door. You're just a number, you're just money, you're like a faceless name. There's no kind of like individualized care, no trying to get to know your story. You're just a zombie. You're just a zombie. You're a body. And um I want to talk about the loneliness of the experience of psychiatric jails, but I also want to talk about the loneliness of after. Because like I said,
Mm-hmm.
when I got out, I went through this really traumatizing experience. Was like basically like catatonically depressed. Like I couldn't get out of bed. And like all I could eat was soup. Like I couldn't eat food. All I could eat was
Yeah.
soup. And so my grandma came up from Jamaica and was like kind of like making me soup to help me, but no one ever talked about it. Like no one in my family ever talked about it. And so it I have never spoken about it because of no one talked about it. But I always wanted to. I always wanted
Yeah.
to, but I wanted to talk about it with someone who understood it, because I think otherwise, if I tell my friends I was hospitalized, everyone just kind of like changes the subject. Like it's so uncomfortable. It's so
Yeah.
deeply painful for people to accept that someone has been hospitalized for mental health and suicidal ideations, that everyone wants to act like it's like, oh, I went to the beach, or oh, I went to a hotel. Like, no, I was in a basic mental jail cell, where people were being restrained and people were being like tied down to beds. Like, that is, and I really appreciate your platform, and I appreciate you saying this, because I think if we're gonna change things, and I don't even think reform, I think abolish them, because there's no reforming something that is so like deeply, deeply violent. Like I don't even know what that looks like. I think the first step is just being able to talk about it and being able to say what actually happens in these institutions. So that's basically wow, I that's the most I've ever shared.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And it is so needed. I think, I have spoken about it very, like I've tap danced around it. My friends kind like not even all of my friends know, like some of them kind of know, like, oh, I think she was in the hospital, but they don't know what I went through. They don't know the experience. They don't know the type of treatment. They don't know the abuse. So they don't really know my story. And so, like you said, I like that. Depressed While Black, Imade is doing the work, as well as Beam, as well as Patrice Kalors, and they're saying, these are prisons. These
Mm-hmm.
are literal prisons.
Mm-hmm.
People always ask me like, well, you went, don't you feel better? And I'm like, I actually felt worse.
Feel
I
worse.
actually felt worse than when I went in. And my ideal was I'm going here to get help. And I left and I felt like I just could have figured it out on my own. Like I honestly could have just stayed home and just said, well, I'll just call a therapist myself. And so you have no right. You have no say so. You have no say so in your plan. They don't ask you what would your plan look like for you. When you leave here, do you have access to even go to a therapist? Do you have a job? Do you have money? Do you have a ride? Like, can you take off from work? Those questions aren't even asked. It's literally, hey, you're here. We want to get you out. Hey, you're here. We want to get you out the door. It's get you in, revolving door. And I remember I always think about one of the nurses. He made a comment and said, I don't want to see any of you back in here again. I don't want to see any of you here again. This needs to be your first and last time. Like, once you leave here, go get help. And in my mind, I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing you all are doing. There's no real therapeutic. I mean, anything that's happening in this system, I'm going to be back. I know, like in my mind, I'm thinking that I'm going to come back because I'm not getting real adequate help. And so I mean, they're condescending. They don't listen.
On
The psychiatrists are the worst. The psychiatrist,
Why are you
the
in
guy that,
why are you in this field? You don't care about
yeah,
people. Why are you in this field? Why are you literally evil? You're an evil person, like trying to talk
yeah,
to me like
they
you're trying
don't
to talk
listen.
to me like I failed because I'm in here. What? Why are
Yeah,
you there?
yeah. It's so, and I know I had this conversation with Imade about you see people who look like you are the nurses. Where I was, every nurse was black.
Yeah,
Everybody who checked me in,
same.
everybody who signed me in, the police that drove me there, the
Same.
nurse at the front desk. These are our people.
Yes.
These are
Oh
our
my God.
people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just insensitive, just condescending. And it's like, take the medicine. If you like, I was literally told, if you don't take the medicine, we're gonna force you and make you take it. That like the exact words were, if you don't take it, we're going to force you and make you take the medication. And in my mind, I was thinking like, I don't even know what this medicine is. They don't tell you what you take. They literally give you a cup and say, here you go, and a little swig of water, and you stand there and you go. Nobody explains to you
And
what this
then
medication does.
check to make sure that you're swallowing all these kind of things, and it was weird to be lining up to take things that I don't even know, and like I'd never really taken medication before that. um and
Mhm.
it's just, yeah, it's just absolutely, and you know what's funny, because like you said, you think you're gonna be back here there again. I have struggled with suicidal ideation since that was 2016. I've struggled with suicidal ideation since, because these mental illness is not a one-off event. It's a chronic, it's a lifelong thing that we're fighting. But
Mhm.
based on the first experience, I never want to go to a psychiatric hospital again. So it's like I'm suicidal again. I'm struggling again. But now that I've been there, I'm not going back. Like I will find every other way. And it's like now
Right.
the onus is on me to find my own care package, basically. The onus is
Yeah.
on me to design my own wellness plan because I know that I am not going back there again because they're not there to help or treat or care.
Right. And so I agree. It needs to be abolished. I mean, there's so much statistical data that shows that like once you go in, you know, your return, your ability to return, the number of the time, the percentage. I mean, just the I know in America we have a long history of mental facilities being abused and abusing those people who are in there. And once you are in these facilities, you really don't have rights. There
Yeah.
are laws, and I mean, like the intent, I think, of like certain laws are like, okay, ideal. Like, you're going to harm yourself. We're going to keep you here to make sure you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, once you enter into these facilities, then your rights are stripped. Then you're able, it's like, okay, we strip you from your rights. Now we can medicate you. We can restrain you. We can tell you you can't see your family. We can tell you that you won't go back to work. And so it's like your whole life changes right around, and everything you thought, the little foundation that you had is broken. Now it's gone. And it's so like, it's like, how can we reform these things? Because most of the psychiatrists are white.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the social workers are white.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the therapists that are white.
Mm-hmm.
These people don't understand. They kept asking me, well, you keep saying I'm stressed about work, but how can you be stressed? You have a job. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You're a therapist. What do you mean? How can I be stressed because I have a job? Like,
Yeah.
what? And so they don't get it. And trying to explain them about cultural things and even interactions with like my family, they could not grasp the connection. And so what I did was I shut down.
Mm-hmm.
It was a game. Okay, how can I get out of here? Okay, I need to talk. Okay, no, I feel better. No, I'm not suicidal. No, I can function. Yeah, I feel good. And 3 days later I was gone.
Yeah.
And then they left it up to me to go find my own help.
Yep.
At 19,
Yeah.
my mental health was not a priority.
Yeah.
It was, I just get me out of here. Like, I just want to go.
Yeah.
And so, and that's my issue. And so I totally agree with the ideal to defund these organizations, to defund these institutions. And really for Black people, people of color, Indigenous people to create our own
Yes.
programs, right? And what would that look like for us? You know, like how would that look for us? How would we be able to do that? And so I think, you know, this month I really wanted to focus on psychiatry,
Yeah.
and especially Black psychiatrists.
Yeah.
There's only 1% of African American psychiatrists in the U.S. There's about 28,000 psychiatrists in the U.S., so that's about 280
Mm-hmm.
Black psychiatrists over 50 states. So
Mm-hmm.
when we think about this, we think about the South. So just looking at the census in America, most Black people live in the South. There are more rural areas in the South. Some people, the average distance to the nearest psychiatrist is 50 miles away.
Yeah.
50 miles
Yep.
away. So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a crisis and I need medicine, if I do need medicinal treatment, who do I go to? And
Right.
so these are the things. So when we start throwing out ideals of defunding and abolishing and trying to create these new systems, what is that going to look like for Black people, for Indigenous folks, for Latino folks, underprivileged? You know, what is this going to look like? And so I think these conversations, like you said, are really important because people just don't know. They don't know what we experience, right? And it's kind of like, it's funny because it's kind of like we're unicorns because we're Black. We're supposed to be resilient. We're supposed to be so strong.
Strong Black
Yeah,
woman, strong Black this, strong Black resilient, gritty, pray about it. Like we're fighting spirits. We survived worse. The whatever intergenerational trauma, epigenetics. Like it's like almost like we're crying our trauma, but it's like trauma that's down our lineage. So in any case, it's just like it's hard
yeah,
and heavy and it's unsustainable to carry it on our own. I think my biggest critique about health care and mental health care system in the US is I think the US culture, and not just the US, but like in general, bootstraps. But I think that care and healing happens in community because
yeah,
if I am struggling with this, I'm not just struggling with it. There are other like community factors that are like playing into it. So it's like the relationship with your family, the relationship at work. So we're gonna talk about like treating mental health. We can't leave it to the individual. We have to look at like all the systems around that place. So I think mental
Absolutely.
health care also includes like housing security, food security,
Yeah.
job security.
Yeah.
It's like building out a well-rounded social system, because you treat one thing, but if the other things are broken, then it's kind of like you're putting a table with just one leg to stand on. It needs to be an evenly distributed um, system of care, basically. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so these conversations are needed, and we need to hear the voices of the people who have had these experiences. And I am not one of those people to play into respectability politics. I want to hear from people who've been in prison because I need to know what the experience is like so I can ensure that that does not happen again.
yeah,
We need to hear from our African American Black brothers and sisters who are going into these institutions and who are being just heavily medicated.
and
I mean, I've
dehumanized.
really seen people who can't talk anymore
Yeah,
because of the medicine, because of the restraints. And how do you expect someone to heal when you are further traumatizing them?
yeah,
I can't heal if I'm further being traumatized.
yeah,
And although I personally have never been in that side of the mental health facility, experiencing psychosis in that, to that extent, I have still been a part of a system just did not work. Being those microaggressions, I mean, they don't understand our experience, and so they're asking us, "Well, I don't understand why you're stressed. You can't ask your mom for help. You can't ask your dad. What about your dad? He can't give you any money." And it's like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. And so, but they don't understand. And so even the type of therapy, so like where I was, they did music therapy and art therapy, and it literally was, "Hey, we're gonna listen to this song. Tell me how you feel. Write it down." I'm
yeah,
like, "That's good." "Hey, we're gonna paint. We're gonna. So everybody in here, think about your mom. Paint how you feel about her." And it's like, but there's no context behind it. There's no therapeutic processing behind it. There is no, de-stressing afterwards. It's just like, "Hey, we talked about all this heavy stuff. Go back to your room. We'll see you in 30 minutes for another therapeutic session."
yeah,
And so, you got to think of these things. And so I think, like I said, it's really important that we discuss this and we continue this conversation. And of course, we bring in Black psychiatrists because in our situation, they hold the power.
yeah,
Yes, they're Black, but they're also psychiatrists. They're the people in those systems. And so we have to hold them accountable as well and say, "Hey, if you see something wrong, if you know this is wrong, it is your obligation to say something." Like you said earlier, you are here to help. That's the job, the career path that you chose to do is become a psychiatrist or a therapist. So now you are obligated to thus help these people. And so I think it's important that we include them in the conversation and talk about the experience because if they don't if we're always silent, nobody know, it's kind of that saying of like, if you're silent about your pain, they'll say you enjoyed it.
yes, yes,
Really,
yes.
it's like, and I've had people who say, "But you went to a mental health facility, like, didn't you get better?" And I'm like, "No,
No,
I
I
really,
got worse.
I left.
I got
Yeah, I
so
got
much
worse.
worse before I ever got better.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so thank you so much for like joining in this conversation. And it's so good to just have these, like I said, these conversations where we're honest and we're open and we're talking about things that we experience for people to see, why we're saying abolish. We're not just saying abolish because it's just a nice little phrase to kind of throw around.
No.
We are saying abolish because we've been in the system. We've experienced it. I have had mental health issues since the age of 12.
Yep.
I am in my 40s. So,
Hmm.
I have been through this system for years and it has not changed. Like, it honestly, there's nothing different.
No.
It looks exactly the same as it did when I was 12 as it does now at 30.
Yep.
So, I think, enough is enough. That's how I feel like it's
That's it.
enough of talking
That's
and
it.
asking and just abolish it,
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to continuing conversations with you
Yes.
in the future.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. So thank you so much for joining in. It's about 12:50. So that was such a great conversation. Hey Tarshell, I've been reading your comments. Yes, we need authentic voices to be heard. Yes. And yeah, definitely when you come out, you are labeled. I'm trying to like go back. I've had these conversations. So I've been having these conversations at school about the curriculum and standards that need to be changed. That is a whole conversation. There was actually a black student, a young girl, a few months back. She was detained by police and taken to a mental health facility, and her parents, her mom was not called. She was a young black girl, and the school was like, "Oh, she was being so wild, we couldn't control her," and they actually called the police to escort her to a mental health facility. And so when we talk about prison, we have to talk about education system as well. And I can speech and preach off tons of statistics about black students going from, of course, the school to prison pipeline, and of course going to mental health facilities as well. We have these teachers who the students may be a little more active and immediately is, well, I think your child has ADHD, and they will use that, and they will use that as a tool to further push that ideology. Like, I can't deal with him, I can't get to know your child, I can't work with them, I can't learn who they are, I can't deal with them. I have a son, and I've literally sat in class and watched a white student kick a desk clear across the room, and his teacher was like, you need to stop now, I'm not playing, I'm going to put you out of the class. And my son actually was suspended for 5 days for doing something very similar. So when we have these conversations, right, we have to be, she suggested, oh, I think he has ADHD, which he does, but this was when he was in kindergarten. So new into school, this is a baby. This is a baby. And so we have to have these conversations as well. Yes, or lazy, yes, or ADHD or ADD. And so we have to keep these conversations going because our babies go to mental health facilities as well. There are young children at, the age of 7 who are literally in psychiatric facilities, and they're heavily medicated as well. And so we have to advocate. The more we know, the more our experiences, we can share our experiences. That's a part of our advocacy, right? So us sharing our voices and talking about it. But it's not just the responsibility of the person with the mental illness. It is also the responsibility of the community, of the people who don't have mental illnesses. So if you are Black and you do not have a mental illness, it is your responsibility as well to advocate, because we are saying Black Lives Matter. That means all of them, and us included. And so because I have a mental illness, I am not less deserving or worthy of being alive. I am not less deserving or less worthy of being of being advocated for. I still deserve and I'm worthy of a life, and to live and enjoy and to be happy and to have my rights. Me having a mental illness does not equate a criminal crime. I am not a criminal because I have a mental illness. I have something that I have to manage every day, just like everyone else. So when we have these conversations, we have to talk about it. So while I wrap up here, talk about radical reform, we kind of talked about that. So if you want to know people who are doing the work to abolish these systems, Beam, I love Beam. I love YOLO. He's like my secret crush. So Beam, you can go check them out. They're doing something this entire month. They're partnering with the Press While Black. She's awesome. That's Amade. That's my boo. I have something planned with her coming up soon. But they're working together to abolish these psychiatric systems, these mental health facilities, as well as Patrice Cullors. She is one of the founders of Black Lives Matter. Her brother has actually had this experience in and out of mental health facilities, and she is on it. And so she's doing a lot of reform work around that as well. Let's see. I stopped trying to make my words cute and sound good. I chose to keep it raw and real. People need to know our real stories and experience. Absolutely. And that, I think just to kind of end on this note, it's interesting because for Black women, we're always told we're too much, we're too extra, we're too exaggerative, we make too much noise, we're too loud. And so I think it's important. We need to be louder. We need to be more extra. We need to be like, and because we need to be heard. And it's important that these stories are heard. And so yeah, I think, just keeping these conversations going. And so here at Consciously Coping, this is what I'm focusing on this month is psychiatric work. So just to give you guys, since you're on the Transparency Tuesday live, not next week. Yeah, no, actually next week I will be partnering with Depressed While Black as well as Black Moms Guide to Calm. I'll also be partnering with a few more people. I just gotta lock in the dates, and we'll be having more of these conversations surrounding around psychiatric facilities and being Black in this, in this mental health community. And because this is so important, y'all, like so many Black people do need mental health. They need mental health help as well as medicinal treatment plans, but we also have to remember they have rights. We have rights. I have rights. I take medication. I have rights as well, just as much as anyone else. We do not take rights away from cancer patients. We don't take rights away from people who have diabetes. We don't take rights away from anybody else that is on any type of medication. They have their rights. So do we. I have the right to talk about my treatment plan. I have the right to say what my health plan looks like for me. What does it look like for me for therapy? What does it look like for me to go to a psychiatrist? I have that right. And so, yeah, so thank you guys so much. You can find me on here, of course, on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram at Consciously Coping. Find me on Twitter as well at Conscious Coping. Facebook at Consciously Coping. YouTube coming soon, coming back, Consciously Coping. And of course, my DMs are always open. If you have a question, if you need a resource, if you need help finding therapy, if you need money for therapy, please reach out to me. If you are trans, if you are a woman, if you are a man, if you're not gender, binary, whatever, I don't care. Just shoot me a quick DM or even an email at coping.consciously@gmail.com. I will reach out to you and find that resource. And if I don't know, I am also a part of the healingblackwomen.com family. It's a ton of wonderful, amazing women over there who have tons of resources. And if I can't direct you, I'm sure they can. And yeah, if you want a large organization for mental health services, definitely reach out to NAMI. NAMI is really great in certain areas. Our NAMI in my city does not do any work at all, but larger areas they do. DBSA is really good. Mental Health of America as well. These are larger organizations that you can reach out to. Just keep in mind, sometimes they do not have culturally competent peers or employees, so kind of taking a chance there. Yeah, so next week Tuesday. I really don't have that conversation just yet that I want to talk about. But I think I may talk about specifically medication, and talking about being misdiagnosed and how that affects us. I think that I'll start doing some research on that. If you have anything you want me to talk about, shoot me a message. I love you guys. Stay well, take care of yourself, and happy Black, Indigenous, people of color, people of color mental health awareness month. Thank you everybody for joining in. This will actually be up on Instagram, and I'll probably upload it to Facebook and YouTube a little bit later, and be on the lookout for a blog to pop up as well. And I'll put some key points about thank you for sharing, Tasha. I'll put some key points on the blog probably by the end of this week, so you all can go see what we talked about. If you missed it, just start from the beginning. Really great conversation. Thank you so much. Embrace Your Unknown. Like, she is amazing. I love her. Her work is awesome. Yeah, we have to help each other, y'all. That's all I got to say. And last thing but not least, I just did a podcast with Before You Kill Yourself. So that should be up, I think, tomorrow. So I will share it here. Really great conversation I had about my mental health struggles as a child. And we talked a lot about my childhood and how I was affected by being misdiagnosed and how that really affected my treatment and kind of where I am today. So if you want to learn about like how mental health, the mental health community affects us as children, be on the lookout for that. I love you all. Have a great day. I'm running out of time. I'm on 10 minutes, 9, 8, 7. So bye. See y'all soon.